He fired his best mechanic for helping a poor old lady, calling it bad business. But he had no idea that this helpless grandma was actually an undercover billionaire who was about to destroy his entire life. It started on a day that felt suffocatingly hot, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the asphalt. A heavy, oppressive summer afternoon that smelled of gasoline, burnt rubber, and old sweat. In the corner of the noisiest workshop in town, the sound of metal striking metal echoed like a clock ticking down to a disaster. Luis, a young mechanic with grease permanently etched into his fingerprints and clothes that had seen better decades, was working without pause. He did not have much in this world. In fact, he had almost nothing. His entire universe revolved around a small, dimly lit room in a crumbling house where his sick mother lay, waiting for medicine that cost more than Luis made in a week. Every wrench he turned, every tire he lifted was for her. He was a man driven not by ambition, but by a desperate, terrifying love. He knew that one mistake, one missed paycheck, could mean the difference between life and death for the only person who had ever loved him. He was tired. His muscles screamed for rest, but the image of his mother's pale face kept him moving. That morning, the routine was broken by the coughing sound of a dying engine. A rusted, ancient sedan rolled slowly into the garage, sputtering as if it were gasping for its final breath. Behind the wheel sat a woman who looked as fragile as the car itself. Her hair was white, her hands trembled on the steering wheel, and her eyes held that specific kind of sadness that comes from years of solitude. "Good morning, son," she said, her voice barely rising above the noise of the hydraulic jacks. "My car is making a terrible noise, and to be honest, I have no idea what it could be. I am afraid it might be dangerous." Luis wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of oil, and offered her a genuine, warm smile. It was the kind of smile that did not belong in a place run by greed. "Do not worry, ma'am," he said softly. "Let me take a look. I am sure it is nothing we cannot fix." As Luis leaned under the hood, the old woman did not go to the waiting room. She stayed. She watched him. She observed the way he handled the tools with respect, the way he did not rush, the way he treated her rusted piece of junk with the same care he would give a luxury sports car. They began to talk. It started with small talk about the weather, but soon the walls came down. She told him about her empty house on the outskirts of town, about the silence that filled her hallway since her family had passed away, and Luis, usually quiet and reserved, found himself opening up to this stranger. He told her about the long nights caring for his mother, the fear of the rising cost of pills, the dream of one day owning a small shop where he would not be yelled at every hour. "You remind me of my mother," Luis confessed, his voice thick with emotion as he tightened a bolt deep inside the engine. "That is why, when I see someone your age, I feel like I have to help. It is not a choice for me. It is a duty." The old woman's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She did not say anything immediately, but inside her something shifted. She had met many men in her long life. Powerful men, rich men, men who commanded rooms with their voices. But this humble mechanic, with dirt under his nails and holes in his shoes, possessed a nobility she had not seen in decades. She decided right then and there to test him, a true test of character. When the engine finally purred back to life, sounding smoother than it had in years, the moment of truth arrived. The woman patted her coat pockets. She checked her bag. She began to look frantic, her hands shaking visibly. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling with staged panic. "Oh, son, I am so ashamed. I think I left my wallet at home. I do not have a single cent on me." The workshop went silent for a moment. Luis looked at the car, which had taken 2 hours of intense labor and expensive parts to fix. Then he looked at the woman. He saw the fear in her eyes, or what he thought was fear. He imagined his own mother in this situation, stranded and scared. "Do not worry, ma'am," Luis said. his voice firm and kind. "It is okay. You do not owe me anything. Just promise me you will drive carefully. Go home. Be safe." "But your boss," she whispered, glancing nervously toward the glass office where the manager sat. "The parts, the labor. This will cost you." "It does not matter," Luis interrupted, offering a sad, resigned smile. "Some things are more important than money. My mother raised me to know that, but the universe has a cruel sense of timing." Just as the words left his mouth, a shadow fell over them. The heavy, thundering voice of Don Ernesto, the owner of the workshop, cut through the air like a whip. "What did you just say, Luis?" Ernesto was a large man, with a face permanently flushed red from anger and high blood pressure. He was a man who worshipped every penny and despised every display of weakness. He marched over, wiping his hands on a rag, looking from Luis to the old woman with absolute disgust. "Did you just give away a repair?" Ernesto hissed, stepping into Luis's personal space, the smell of stale coffee and aggression radiating from him. "Sir, she forgot her wallet," Luis tried to explain, his voice shaking slightly but standing his ground. "It was a simple fix. I used some spare parts we were going to throw away." "Throw away?" Ernesto roared, his spit flying. "In this business, nothing is thrown away. Every screw has a price. And you think you are a philanthropist? You think you can run a charity with my equipment, with my time?" "I could not leave her stranded," Luis pleaded. "She is elderly. She is alone. That is exactly why you will always be poor, Luis," Ernesto screamed, pointing a thick finger at his chest. "Because instead of thinking like a businessman, you think like a sentimental beggar. This workshop is not a church. It is not a foundation for lost causes." The old woman watched in silence. Her eyes were watering, but she did not intervene. She needed to see how far this would go. She needed to see the depth of the cruelty and the height of the sacrifice. Luis lowered his head, fighting back tears of humiliation. The other mechanics stopped working, watching the scene but too afraid to speak up. "I did not do it for charity," Luis said quietly. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." "The right thing does not pay my electricity bill," Ernesto bellowed. "Get out! You are fired! Pack your trash and get out of my sight before I call the police for theft of services." The sentence hung in the air, heavy and final. Fired. For Luis, that word was not just an inconvenience. It was a death sentence for his mother's treatment. It was the end of the food on the table. Slowly, painfully, Luis nodded. He did not scream back. He did not fight. He simply took off his grease-stained gloves and placed them gently on the workbench. "Thank you for the opportunity," he whispered, his dignity intact even as his world collapsed. "I suppose my father will have to wait a little longer for justice, and my mother for her medicine." The old woman wanted to scream. She wanted to reveal everything right there, but she held back. The lesson had to be complete. She watched as Luis walked out into the blinding afternoon sun, a broken figure carrying the weight of the world. Ernesto turned to her, his face twisted in a sneer. "And you, lady, next time make sure you have money before you waste professional time. We do not serve charity cases here. Get out." She did not respond with anger. She looked at Ernesto with a calm, terrifying coldness, a look that should have warned him that he was standing on the edge of a cliff. "I will remember this," was all she said. And she drove away, her mind already spinning a web of destiny that would change everything. That night was the longest of Luis's life. He walked home through a storm that had suddenly broken over the town, the rain masking the tears on his face. When he entered his small house, his mother was waiting. She saw the look in his eyes. She did not need to ask. "It will be okay," she whispered, holding his calloused hand in her frail ones. "Good people always find a way, my son. God is watching. He does not sleep." Luis wanted to believe her, but as he sat by the window watching the lightning illuminate the flooded streets, he felt abandoned. He did not know that miles away, In a mansion surrounded by high walls and security guards, the poor old woman, Elena Vargas, was making phone calls. Elena was not just a grandmother. She was a legend in the business world, a real estate mogul who had retired years ago after the tragic death of her own son. Since then, she had been looking for something money could not buy, an heir. Not an heir of blood, but an heir of spirit. Someone who had the heart that the world had tried to crush in her. The next few days were a blur of rejection for Luis. He went to every garage in town, but Ernesto had poisoned the well. He had called other owners, warning them about the thief who gave away services for free. Doors were slammed in Luis's face. Hope was dwindling to a flicker. Then the phone rang. It was a soft voice, professional yet kind. "Mr. Luis? We have a position available for a head mechanic. Please come to this address." Luis was skeptical. The address was in the upscale district, an area where mechanics did not usually have shops. But he had nothing left to lose. He spent his last coins on a bus ticket and went. When he arrived, he stopped dead in his tracks. It was not an old garage. It was a state-of-the-art facility. Glass walls, polished floors, brand new hydraulic lifts, and the latest diagnostic computers. And there, above the entrance, a sign was being installed. Luis and Associates Automotive Center. "Excuse me," Luis stammered to the receptionist. "There must be a mistake. I am here for an interview, but my name is on the sign. There is no mistake, son." He turned around. Coming down the glass staircase was the old woman. But the faded dress was gone, replaced by a tailored suit. The uncertainty in her step was replaced by the grace of a queen. Elena Vargas smiled. "You?" Luis gasped. "But you did not have money for the repair." "I have enough money to buy this town, Luis," she said softly, walking up to him. "But I did not have anyone I could trust. My son died years ago. He was like you, kind, generous, too good for this harsh world. Since he passed, I have been looking for someone who carries that same flame." She took his hands. "I tested many people, Luis. Many. They all saw a vulnerable old woman and saw an opportunity to exploit me or ignore me. You were the only one who saw a human being. You lost your job to protect my dignity. So, I built this for you." Luis fell to his knees. The sobbing came from deep within his chest, a release of all the terror and pressure of the last few days. "I do not know what to say. I can pay for my mother's treatment now." "You can do much more than that," Elena said, lifting him up. "This business is yours. The deed is in your name. All I ask is one promise." "Anything," Luis choked out. "Promise me you will never let the world turn your heart into stone. Do not become like the man who fired you." News of the new super workshop spread like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know who the mysterious owner was. It did not take long for the rumors to reach Ernesto. Consumed by envy and confusion, the old boss drove to the new location, convinced there was some trickery involved. He barged in ready to yell, but froze. He saw the line of luxury cars waiting for service. He saw the happy staff. And he saw Luis, wearing a clean uniform, managing the floor with confidence. "You!" Ernesto shouted, his face turning purple. "How? You are a nobody! You are a beggar!" Luis stopped what he was doing. He walked over to his old boss, not with anger, but with pity. Before he could speak, Elena stepped forward from her office. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. "He is not a nobody," Elena said, her voice cutting like a diamond. "He is the man you threw away like garbage. And because you were too blind to see his value, you lost the biggest investment of your life." "You? You are the old lady with the broken car," Ernesto stammered, realizing the trap he had walked into. "And I am also the owner of the land your workshop stands on," Elena revealed, delivering the final blow. "My lease with you expires next month. I have decided not to renew it. I prefer tenants who have a soul." Ernesto stood there crushed, He had lost his best employee, his reputation, and now his business. All because of a free repair he refused to give. He turned and walked away, a small, defeated man shrinking under the weight of his own greed. From that day on, Luis's workshop became a beacon in the community. He did not just fix cars, he fixed lives. He started a program to train young men and women from poor neighborhoods, giving them the same chance he had been given. He paid for his mother's treatment, and she lived to see her son become a pillar of the town. Luis and Elena became inseparable. He cared for her as if she were his own blood, visiting her every evening for tea. They filled the void in each other's lives, the mother without a son, and the son who needed a guide. Years later, when Elena finally passed away peacefully in her sleep, the entire town mourned. But she did not leave Luis empty-handed. In her will, she left him everything, along with a note that he framed in his office. It read, "True wealth is not in the pocket, but in the heart. Thank you for fixing my car, but thank you more for fixing my faith in humanity." Luis would often stand in front of that note, looking out at his busy workshop, at the young apprentices learning the trade. He would smile, remembering the hot afternoon, the grease, the screaming boss, and the old woman who changed everything. He learned that life is a circle. What you give, you get back. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes years, but the boomerang of kindness always returns. So if you are watching this and feeling like the world is punishing you for being good, do not give up. Someone is watching. The test is not over. And remember, you never know who is behind the mask of a stranger. The person you help today might hold the keys to your destiny tomorrow.